Hey everybody, I hope you're having a good time today. Thanks for being here. Today I'm going to show you how to dissect a cow's eye. We'll look at the external anatomy and all of the things inside. Even though each specimen is slightly different, if you pay attention and really think through this, I know that you'll do a great job. Now these are the materials you'll be using. A scalpel handle, I've chosen size number 3. A blade that will match that scalpel handle, and so I've chosen a 10. Some mosquito forceps for putting the blade on and taking the blade off of the handle, a dull probe, and some forceps. Then of course your sample here. These cow eyes come to us and they have a lot of the surrounding tissue still attached, a lot of muscle and ligaments and tendons, connective tissue. This would be the front of the eye, the cornea, and the sclera. At the back, you'll be able to see the optic nerve. And what most of this dissection is going to be about time-wise is removing all of this extra tissue so that you can really just see the eye. And so that's going to be removing all of this fat, connective tissue, and muscle so that you have only the cornea and the sclera showing. The way you're going to do this is by using your fingers and or the forceps, depending on the tissue and what it's doing. And you're going to try to pull it away from the eye and cut as close to the eye but not into the eye as you can. And now here we go. Got things pretty well cleaned up. There's a little bit of muscle still left along here, which is okay. And though I tried to keep the optic nerve pretty much intact, I did cut through it just a little bit. So from here, you'll be getting photos so that you can label just a few things. The cornea, which is the clear part of the outer layer of the eye. And then the sclera is all the rest. And then you'll also label the optic nerve. The only reason that these are not perfectly clear now is because of the preservative solution that they're in makes the proteins it's kind of like a chemical cooking. And so it's, instead of being clear like an egg white before it's cooked, it is opaque because it's kind of like it's being cooked. Those proteins are not as clear as they should be. Now for cutting into the eye, the bisection, you're going to remove most of the optic nerve. And you're going to use that kind of as a reference. And so you'll have the optic nerve here, and you're going to use just the very tip of your scalpel blade, you're going to press it into the optic nerve and then wiggle it. You don't want to apply a lot of pressure because what you're trying to do is pierce the sclera and get into the vitreous chamber. And if you push a lot before you cut in, there's going to be a lot of pressure and the contents could squirt out a little bit once you finally breach the sclera. You'll feel your scalpel give pretty quickly once you've made it through. And at that point, you're going to be using the bottom edge of the scalpel and just gentle sawing motions down to the cornea on one side and then on the other. Now here, you're going to need to cut through the cornea, and you want to cut through the lens as well. And what happens is the lens is so hard that you can get your scalpel embedded in it, and so if you cut back and forth, you're really just going to have your lens stuck on your scalpel and be moving it back and forth, ruining all of the interior structures. And so to counteract that, or to anticipate that, you're going to instead put your scalpel blade through and push until you've pushed through everything. Then you'll pick it up and you will push and in this way, I've been able to keep all of the structures located where they normally would be. The vitreous gel is still in the vitreous chamber. I was able to cut it in half and keep some in both halves. And I'll point to the structures for you to label. This is the cornea again. We have the dark iris with the opening, the pupil. And recall that everything from the iris to the cornea is the anterior chamber, and it was filled with a liquid called aqueous humor. Here's our lens. The lens is held in place by some ciliary muscles and suspensory ligaments. When we take the lens out, we'll be able to see those even more clearly. The posterior chamber is much smaller, and it's everything that is between the iris and the suspensory ligaments, so very small space here. We have the vitreous chamber filled with vitreous fluid. We have the retina here, the dark layer, the choroid coat, and then the outer layer, the sclera. We have the optic nerve here, and this is called the blind spot because it's where all of the axons are leaving and there's no space for any photoreceptors here. Next, we'll start removing some structures to see what they look like isolated. So here I've gently removed the vitreous gel, and so we can see the vitreous chamber on its own, and you can see the retina intact. I also removed the lens. You can see some of the suspensory ligaments that were holding it in place and some small pieces of the iris that ripped off. You can see the ripples of the ciliary muscles. Then the last official part of this dissection is to gently move the retina. And I wanted to do that to show you this bright spot. This is not in humans. This is in animals that need to see at night. And it's called the tapetum lucidum. What it does is it makes it so that light that gets through the retina reflects back into the retina again, and so it gives those light waves a second shot at being absorbed and causing a signal in the retina to be sent. That's very important in low light and for animals who are active in low light situations. It's this tapetum lucidum that's responsible for the shine in a dog's or cat's eyes when you take a photograph of them. Once you've gotten all of this done, you've seen things intact, you've removed them, then you can do whatever else you would like to explore with them. or you can dispose of them.
Well, that was a really great specimen, and I was able to see everything I was hoping to. I hope that it was clear enough and obvious enough what you need to do. I hope that your specimen is as good as that one and you have as much success as I did. Good luck.